Hey traders, it's Keith here. We'll be looking at a variety of charts today, but I first wanted to talk a little bit about our Discord. If you're not in here already, it is truly a gem. We have a bot that presents any news topics whenever they pop up in the multiple news sources that we have this tracking. We talk about NFTs, we talk about mining, staking, liquidity pools, places to put your money and park it that is going to generate revenue. So definitely check this out. We talk about DeFi coins, altcoins, and of course, Bitcoin, talking about key news stories, relevant topics, and just overall looking for a slight edge in the market by being a very helpful community and helping one another. So if you're not in there already, definitely check that out. Instead of using my main overall monitor, I'm going to be pulling charts into this second monitor so I get a little bit closer of a look, and then we can just dive right into it. So I first want to quickly bring up the price of Bitcoin because that is going to be the main leader or the dominant market to be looking at in the crypto realm. Looks a little bit daunting. This is the Bitcoin chart right here to the left, and then to the right we got the market cap for BTC compared to the rest of the altcoin market. So this is the Bitcoin dominance. BTC.D is the ticker. We'll first talk about BTC and then we'll jump into the dominance of Bitcoin. So looks a little bit daunting. I'll just take it all off right here. In short, what we are seeing, let's do a quick print screen so I can draw. We saw a nice contraction within just above that 30K zone right here. This is a 30K zone, and we saw that nice contraction as we saw right here, and we saw a very strong break to the upside. First major pullback was around that 40K zone, which was holding this structure in place like so. This was that major consolidation area where a lot of people were worried this was the right shoulder of the head and shoulders, because if we're looking at it from a head and shoulders perspective, we see this is the left shoulder, this is that big head, that ascending wedge head, as you can see, and then this is our right shoulder that could have potentially played out if we did break to the downside from the 30K support, but we were able to hold because of this nice descending wedge, which did squeeze to the upside. Once we saw the momentum start to kick in, it was very promising, and once we broke this zone right here, it was basically very bullish in our perspective. And you can kind of track that from either the YouTube videos or the Discord. Either one, we've been pretty consistent with our bias of the market. And what we're currently seeing right now is a little bit of flattening, a little bit of consolidation, not much overall bullish pressure we're seeing right now. But in my view, we are pressing up with a series of higher lows against a major level of support, as we can see, or a major level of resistance, sorry, we can see right here, which is going to be just above that 50K level. So similar to Ethereum, Ethereum looks very similar, but you see this massive green candle like so. And I think that's what we're going to be seeing with BTC as well. We've been consolidating, we've been trying to break multiple times. We just have not been able to, but it does look like we are at the point where it does look like it's winding up to break to the upside. So we're able to get that very strong, we call it a green dildo in our Discord, but I do think it is coming, and it's just a matter of time. And we'll touch on the smaller time frames here for BTC going up to the 6 hour, and then we'll do the exact same thing of the draw tool here. So this is that 50K zone that we've been talking about, major level of resistance. This is the first potential break where we saw a structure like so, a wedge, and then it broke. It was not able to break above the major key zone of confluence, but we started to see it slowly trend, slowly continue, and it just slowly kept on falling and falling until we were able to hold against this major key level of support. But we were looking at this zone here, hoping that it was going to be able to hold the previous level of resistance. It was not able to, but it did inevitably hold a higher low, as we can see. We can draw a series of higher lows from this point here. So at this point, it does look like it's a squeeze that is breaking to the upside. Our first attempt was this zone right here. So this was our first attempt, like so. First attempt, and it failed. Second attempt was right here, and it heavily failed. And then this is our third attempt, where it's a pretty large structure, as we can see, and we're pressing right up against this major key level of supply of around 50K. So how it looks right now is we've failed multiple times on a small time frame looking at small structures, but on a large structure we do see it wind up here where this key level of ascending support right here is holding the price, making higher lows, and then we see a high, a lower high, and then a lower high, and then it does look like we've completed the contraction. We've even broken the previous level of resistance as of right here. We can see first touch, second touch, all the way until we see it validate as a new level of support. It looks very, very promising for that third validation, or the third attempt, sorry, to break this major key zone of 50K. Looking really solid so far, and I think this is going to break to the upside. Not really going to talk about any of the smaller time frames. Actually, let's go to the 2 hour just to see what it's currently showing here, because we see lots of buy pressure picking up the price. And we can also just go into the print screen and talk about it a little bit more. On the 2 hour chart, we can see lots of buy pressure. This is indicating the buyers picking up the price right back when the price initially dumps, but it comes right back, indicating lots of buy pressure, holding that previous level of resistance as a new level of support. So looking absolutely phenomenal on a smaller time frame. If we really want to get granular, it does potentially have a slight move to the downside there that it could continue with, like so. That definitely wouldn't be too surprising to see, and on a smaller time frame, that's how the current structure looks. And that's that nice midpoint right around there. Could be a little bit higher, maybe somewhere that's a little bit better right there. So it does look like it is contracting a little bit deeper into this previous level of resistance, which is acting as a new level of support. So we're just contracting like so. And I think we are going to get that pop to break this major level of 50K. So it's just a matter of time. We see a lot of alts running. Look at Solana, look at Cardano, ADA. Just some phenomenal moves that we've seen within the overall market. So let's now go into the BTC.D chart. Let's bring back on the charts. And you can see the draw is basically exactly what we were talking about. And overall, I'm just expecting this to consolidate, contract, both in volume as well as price action, which it looks like it's doing right now. And then we're going to see that pop. And once that pop kicks in, that's going to drive that second level, or the second phase of this bull market, where we've had the consolidation. We were telling everyone to accumulate. The bull run is going to continue until the rest of this year. And this is that continuation occurring right now as we speak, which is a phenomenal, phenomenal time to be in the market. So a little bit of the BTC.D chart. We've been calling this ascending wedge break to the downside since we started to really view this as an ascending wedge back in the summer of this year, maybe like late June, early July, somewhere around there. We really started to see the marginally higher highs and the higher lows that is more aggressive than the highs, creating that ascending wedge formation. And we have seen in the previous bull run that this just absolutely dumps when we are in a bull market, and we do see very tight contractions occurring during the bullish market of 2017, even like a little bit into 2016, but we see it just absolutely dump in the peak of the bull market, and we just saw our first dump to the downside. In my opinion, I think we're seeing our second dump to the downside, where it's going to break that previous low, and we can actually draw a quick target here from the geometry of the ascending wedge. So I'll do a quick demonstration of how we view targets. So this is the first indication of your first target right here. You want to get it right at the break there, and a lot of people just end it there, but we also put a fib from that geometric similar height, I guess you could say, or similar size, similar distance from the size of this. So you're using the geometry of the previous pattern to overlay what a potential target would be based on the size of the previous pattern that it's breaking out of. It's not pulling a number randomly out from nowhere. You're using the previous structure to try to have a good understanding of what a potential target would be in the future using what you broke out of. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense there. And we're overlaying a fib level where, let's say this is 61.8, that would be 200%, because this is 100% of the size of the breakout. This is 200%. We're just pulling back a little bit before that 61.8 of the full next tier in terms of the size of the breakout. And hopefully that makes sense. And then this is another level here. So that's where I got the around 28% in terms of the BTC.D chart. This is an all-time low for the Bitcoin dominance, but I do think we will hit it. Around 26, 27% is my target for the Bitcoin dominance chart in this next major move down, which is kind of sounds like it is pretty aggressive, but this does move very quick to the downside when it is at a point of altcoin rallies, massive speculation in the market. This will absolutely plummet, and that's what we're expecting, and that's what we're hoping. All right, let's continue on with the analysis here. Let's just go on the daily, and let's bring this over here. And now we're going to be looking at another chart here. This is the Bitcoin Volatility Index, kind of like the VIX for the S&P. And we have a bunch of different charts here all mushed together to form what we call the Relative Strength or Weakness tool. It's a really good way to compare different altcoins together in a single time frame to understand which altcoins are performing best. In other words, which altcoins are receiving the most amount of capital, in short. And that gives you somewhat of an understanding of the relative strength and weakness of an overall market. So let's first take a look at the BVOL, which is the Bitcoin Volatility Index. We have been dropping below this area of support. Now, obviously, we could just go like this and we can continue on. And then it could be looking like a potential setup for the next push to the upside. But I don't really view like wedges so much on the Bitcoin Volatility Index. We're really looking for structures that look similar to the previous Bitcoin bull run, because that just makes sense to me. We are seeing the average amount of volatility increase in sections or blocks progressively as the bull run continues, and the volatility is increasing along with the bull run. So we see that there is a structure right around here where this is the average volatility. Let's say it's around 94. If we're kind of getting the middle of it, we're going to be seeing a higher level of volatility on average for a certain duration, and then an even higher level of volatility at a certain point, because Bitcoin is going to go parabolic at some point, and that's where you might want to look at potentially reducing some exposure, putting some profit in maybe lower yielding, less appreciating assets that are a little bit more stable, because that is the peak point where there is max euphoria. Take a look at 2017 or any real major bull run. You're going to have that parabolic phase, and that's where we have to really consider reducing exposure, or at least being a little bit more understanding if there are pullbacks that they could be a lot more significant, and we just have to take it on the chin, basically. So that's my view of the Bitcoin Volatility Index. It is still in that window. It has dropped a little bit, but if we do break that 50K zone to the upside, we will see this significantly move to the upside. For example, this was like the start of the bull run right here, October, November of 2020, and we saw the price in Bitcoin rise as well as the Bitcoin volatility rise at the same time, which you don't really see too often within the S&P and the VIX. So we can have rising volatility as well as rising Bitcoin prices, and that's what I'm expecting when we do see a break in the 50K zone. Is we're going to see rising volatility like we saw back in the fall, winter of late 2020, early 2021. All right. Now we're going to move on to the relative strength or weakness, and something to note, this is actually compared for every single alt against Bitcoin, not USDT. So you're actually comparing against basically a benchmark in the realm of crypto. It's kind of like putting your stock against the S&P. In my personal view, if you're going to be getting less of a return with your favorite alt compared to Bitcoin, why not just go in Bitcoin? It has a longer duration of usage, so it has a history. It has the largest network. I believe it has the largest network in terms of usage, in terms of use case, and it stood the test of time more than any other alt, and it has cemented itself as the store of value in the realm of crypto. It doesn't have a whole lot of functionality other than the ability to store value really well as of right now, but if let's say there's Lightning Network and you're able to have those microtransactions and micropayments, that would bring a whole new game to Bitcoin and would allow Bitcoin to be adopted at a point where it would be feasible to buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin At this current point, we can't, but if that does come to fruition, then Bitcoin would get adopted into the masses and we would see it more of a currency and less of just a store of value. But moving on to the chart here, the relative strength and weakness chart. Going to get a slight drink of this coffee here, and then we're going to continue moving on, and I'm just going to zoom in and out so you can kind of understand the relative strength and weakness of potentially your favorite alt that you see on the screen. All right, so we've noticed, let's say, DOT do really well recently, Ethereum, Cardano do really well, Sol do extremely well recently. And Sol must be in here. I do not think it is. Let's put that in there. So how do you do it? SOL USDT, and you just click it here. We can see Sol, I have not added on it. It is just absolutely, USDT. We need to add the SOL BTC. There we go. That's what we want, is we want to compare it to Bitcoin, and we see Solana is just absolutely mooning. We'll take a look at it compared to USDT on a chart alone itself, but this is a really good way to overlay different alts to see if they're relatively strong or weak. We can see Solana do really well, Luna do really well. Luna is definitely a very interesting project. I think even when the Bitcoin bull run is over, Luna will do extremely well because the UST stablecoin will be in demand, and if that is in demand, they need to burn Luna. So that's going to be reducing the supply of Luna and increasing the price, or appreciating the price more, even if the demand relatively stays the same. So Luna is definitely something to really keep an eye on, because that could go absolutely parabolic if there's a massive demand for UST potentially, because you could burn Luna to receive UST, and burning the supply, if you have the demand consistent, will increase the price substantially. Cardano, massive amount of hype behind this project. Still doesn't have smart contracts. It's pretty unbelievable, but there is a lot of people surrounding the community that is extremely let's say, vocal about Cardano, to say the least. Kind of reminds me of the XRP Ripple community, except XRP Ripple kind of is a complete breed of their own, because they were the chosen one that the SEC decided to fight, which I don't think is completely random. DOT is definitely making a comeback. It has been a relatively weak cryptocurrency compared to things like Solana, ADA, even Ethereum, because it has made significantly lower lows and lower highs since that March sell-off, or May-ish sell-off, but it has come back rallying pretty hard. Ethereum, obviously a very solid project overall and an investment. We see that come back, which is kind of surprising. Link, not too surprising there. It has been pretty underwhelming compared to the hype that it was receiving back in 2017 and 2018. A lot of that hype went into DOT, and then you see things like QNT come up, which is kind of advancing that interoperability sector within crypto, which is very interesting. Cake, obviously, we'll get into that. Really big fan of the Auto Cake DeFi that you're able to leverage in the PancakeSwap platform. HBAR is something that I'm definitely looking into as well. Have no exposure in that, but definitely looking into understanding the DLT that they provide. The distributed ledger technology isn't really blockchain, but yeah, definitely something to read about. QNT, we'll get into that as well, but that's going to be basically TCP/IP for the internet, but in the realm of crypto, where you're able to connect these different networks or blockchains, except it's not just blockchains, it's like all DLTs that QNT is able to connect. So it is pretty unbelievable the amount of interoperability that we'll have in the future when QNT and other projects like them basically connect these different blockchains and other DLTs, similar to the internet pre-TCP/IP. You have these different networks, and the interconnect networks is what creates the internet. There's a plumbing for the World Wide Web. So that's a pretty unbelievable shift in different networks into the World Wide Web to what we know it as today. So massive movements in interoperability will allow different blockchains to communicate with each other, which is an extremely powerful thing when it comes to networks. So we'll get into that. Not really going to get more into this particular chart here, so let's zoom it out. We're going to zoom it back out here. And this is a cool little chart that I won't really get into too much, but this is a really cool section right here to the right. We have the BLX, we have the TLT, which is the bonds, 20-year bonds, I believe this one is. And then we have the SPY, S&P 500, and then we have the US dollar index. So basically, we have TLT, which is in the yellow, and DXY, which is in the orange, do well when there's fear, uncertainty, and overall kind of worriedness in the market. And you can see that really well back in 2014, where you got a lot of hesitation within the S&P, and it was a bear market for crypto. And you see the TLT, the bonds, where yields are dropping, you see the actual price of the bonds increasing quite a bit here, as well as obviously the US dollar absolutely spiking. And then when you see things do really well, like let's say, for example, the bull run in 2017, and when the stock market was able to break its multi-year or very long time resistance, I don't know if, I believe it's multi-year, a multi-year resistance, and then we were able to get a lot of momentum for Bitcoin. You see really significant hesitation for the TLT, and you see the DXY absolutely dropping. So there is some positive and negative correlation between well, at least for Bitcoin in the S&P, positive correlation, and for things like TLT and DXY, you get negative correlation for Bitcoin. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Ideally, we're looking to see the TLT and the DXY drop, move to the downside, and we're looking to see the SPY and the BLX or the BTC chart continue to push to the upside. So that's going to be the overall thesis that we have from a global macro scale, from a large kind of zoomed out time perspective. And obviously, no one knows the future, but until the government and central banks are going to be raising interest rates, I don't think there's anything stopping us from just continuing the inflation trade. Just my personal opinion there. All right, so we're going to move on to the alts now. So I'm just going to be looking at Bitcoin on my other chart here. Hopefully you enjoy this nice background of the beautiful winter vibe that this has. I thought it was a really nice one. All right, let's start off with the big boy in the alt market, Ethereum. Going to get a quick drink here, and then we're going to continue on. All right. So the targets for Ethereum that I currently have is 4,800 and 6,400 basically. And I think that we'll get another continuation pattern towards the end of the year that will set us up for that next leg higher, which will get us above that 10K zone. I do think it's definitely a high possibility that we will see 10K Ethereum not too long in the future, or not too far in the future. We've already, let's just get our nice print screen. Take a nice picture here. And we saw this structure break to the upside, and then we saw this major level of resistance, we can see right here, turn into a key level of support, which was in confluence with the 61.8 level, which is fantastic to see. And we saw a nice consolidation, and this is exactly what we're talking about when we were talking about the ascending triangle that we currently see with Bitcoin. With that, like for Bitcoin, this key level of resistance right here is around 50K. So let's zoom in a little bit closer and take a look at the price action with a little bit more clarity there. And this is what we're seeing with Bitcoin right now, where we see a key level of resistance. This is 50K for Bitcoin, and it was $3,300 for Ethereum. And we see higher lows, which is fantastic to see. Great continuation pattern to the upside. And we see the same thing with Bitcoin, except we don't see this. With Ethereum, we already see that big, strong, bullish candle break the key level of resistance and just absolutely smash to make a new higher high. And we haven't seen that for Bitcoin yet, but I am speculating that we will see that for Bitcoin. And once we do, alts where most of the alts, if not all the alts, will absolutely fly. We already see a lot of them do really well. Solana, Cardano, even Ethereum do really well. Luna, strong, we'll get into them. But definitely, I think once BTC pushes to the upside, breaking 50K zone, basically what we see right here, once we see this big candle and this big break to the upside, then we're going to be looking for basically the entire crypto market to push to the upside. So really great to see Ethereum take that charge. It's just the final piece of the puzzle is going to be Bitcoin. And once Bitcoin breaks to the upside above 50K, I think it's just going to be an absolute rally for all these different alts. All right.
let's take a quick look at Solana. We can see our target was hit, absolutely smashed through. Target was hit with resistance on both ends. You know, that's not random. I have been using this target structure for a while now, and it has been extremely accurate overall. Obviously, it's not going to hit every single time, but there has been so many situations where it's literally connected to the T, the top. So if you haven't checked this out, definitely please do. How you do it is you get your fib, and then you are looking for the negative 0.618, so that would be a negative 1 right here, and that would be a negative 2, and you're getting the 61.8% to the 200%. And then this is, let's say, 262% of 300%. So you're using the geometry of the structure it's breaking out of to gauge how far your target's going to go in terms of like one size, two size, and then you're getting the 61.8 of that size, or three size, you're getting 61.8 of that three size. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense there. So it did break all my targets. So at this point, it's just free flying. I think there's massive FOMO in Solana. If you haven't checked us out, or you're just entering Performante, we were talking about buying, and I was able to get a decent bag at like the 24-25 range right around here. Pretty unbelievable entry. Nathan was a big contributor. Bless his soul. He was getting at me on Solana pretty early, and I've been able to accumulate here at the lows, but the biggest bag was around that 25 range, which was an absolute sniper of an entry. So huge profits with Solana. I think there's a lot more to come, but at this point, it's a little bit sketchy entering the market at an absolute high. I would say pulling back to around 110, 112 would be an absolute beauty of an entry, and I will be looking to add to my Solana position, but I don't think it would be a extremely wise decision to enter at an absolute peak of a high. I say pulling back 112, 113, 110 would be a really ideal place for the price to pull back, so we're able to get a much better entry. All right. Now, we did talk a little bit about DOT. We do see, like for example, Solana, we see the higher lows. So we see relative strength compared to during the same time frame. DOT plummet, making lower lows and lower highs. That has a very aggressive descending wedge. So we have broken out of it. I haven't seen this solid of a recovery in almost any single wedge that's so descending. So it was a little bit of a shocker to me, but Polkadot has been really recovering with a lot of power behind it at this point, and we have seen the price break this major level around $30. That was a key zone that I like to see break for Solana, because I was a little bit worried about this head and shoulders right here, left shoulder, and then we see the head. And I was potentially thinking that we could dip a little bit into the sub 20s again, but because we've already broken the neckline of the 29, 30-ish range, $30 range, we are, in my opinion at least, at full tilt. I think it's going to be continuing to push the upside. $30 is going to be the support for Polkadot, but I think it will continue on here, and we can draw very, very well respected series of slightly higher highs. So it's got a lot of range. I could very easily see it go up to the 64, 65 range pretty quickly here. And we can draw our structure for the targets and see if it aligns well somewhere around here. And that would give us extra confirmation that around that 60K level is not only going to repel the price, but also suck the price towards it, because it's a zone of sensitivity. All right. And Cardano is the last one of the bunch here. Just absolutely monster. We see Cardano hasn't been as strong as Solana, but man, is it ever pumping. And we do see nice level of resistance, higher lows coming in, pushing the price, and I think it will pop again quite soon. We don't even see a tremendous amount of volume coming in, but man, was this ever a strong push to the upside. And I'll just quickly talk a little bit about it with the print screen. And while I do that, I'm going to get a quick drink here. All right, so after this great descending wedge break to the upside, we saw a very, very tight small vol, and we were able to press up against the $1.40, $1.50 range, right around there. And once we broke above it, we were just screaming from the rooftops, this is super bullish. Absolute monster move up, pullback, absolute monster move up, and we hit our first target. And if we're looking at a smaller or larger time frame, this entire down move and back up is just one wick. So you see the wick extend below this zone, but you see the candle closure at that level. So this is a major level of support, and it's great to see the price hold this key level of sensitivity. So in my view, we're just holding here and we're just pressing up. So it is probably looking like we will extend and continue to have the overall momentum to push to the upside. I don't really see anything stopping it at this point, because if Bitcoin pops, like I said, overall crypto market is going to be doing well. This is a relatively strong token that has a lot of community-driven hype and interest surrounding it. You can't really watch a altcoin video on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram without them talking about Cardano. Kind of makes sense. It is the next layer to Ethereum, is what a lot of people who are interested in ADA say, but it doesn't really have smart contracts. There's no real network for like these DEXs or anything yet built, because they don't have smart contracts, so they're heavily behind on that compared to things like Solana that already have smart contracts embedded in them, and they're further along, in my view, in terms of the actual use case and technology. All right, so we're going to talk about the next series of charts right here. We're going to talk about Cake, BNB, huge projects, big fans. They look very similar. They had this nice squeeze, as we can tell. Let's just quickly orient them in a way that we can talk about. And they're both on the... Oh, let's not go into the inspect tool. And let's go into the print screen. There we go. That is the one we're looking for. So we see nice rising ascending zone on BTC or BNB, sorry, you get that as well. And then you get this nice squeeze on both ends. And you just see like grinding up in such a tight range, pretty unbelievable. And you see the same thing with BNB as well. We get this tight range that it's slowly grinding up. You do see it kind of fall a little bit at Cake, but I'm not really too concerned. We have a major level of support at that $20 range right here. So even if we do take a dip, I'm not expecting it to actually continue to the downside. I'm expecting it to kind of consolidate and then continue to the upside. Maybe we'll see a nice small squeeze occur just above that $20 zone before the bulls come back into the market for Cake and continue to push the price up. And Cake's definitely a altcoin that people are talking about. The APY for the auto Cake liquidity pool is just phenomenal. So I think there will be more interest in it. And because the fees get so high on things like Uniswap or SushiSwap, I think there will be a increase in attraction for lower fees, which BSC is known for. Like, it's like cents compared to hundreds of dollars that we saw for things like Ethereum or things running off of the Ethereum network. So I think there's a huge plus there, and no one really likes to pay hundreds of dollars in fees. I think there will be a point where if it gets really bad and Ethereum 2.0 isn't out yet, then the default will just have to go to PancakeSwap, and that's like the largest Binance Smart Chain DEX decentralized exchange that's out there, so it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Luna, like I did say, is a really interesting project. They have a lot of things on the go. They have like the Mirror protocol with M assets. They have their entire stablecoin, where it's not just the US dollar, but they have the Korean they're the Korean native currency. They are implementing all these different currencies for stablecoins. So they're kind of taking the role of a CBDC, a central bank digital currency, but just taking it upon themselves as a private corporation. So it's a pretty interesting situation. I don't know if they're listed on anything, but an organization, a corporation, instead of a government entity. So it'd be interesting to see how the government entities will actually respond to it. But it has been a very relatively strong token that's been on my radar. It has a lot of things on the go. Let's just say that. They have also partnered with Solana and I believe Cardano, maybe a different platform project. But they have partnered and are creating a different token altogether, utilizing all three different technologies. Solana is one of them, I know for sure, and there's one platform project, so a lot of big things to come, but the M assets is a really interesting thing, and the fact that you can burn Luna in order to receive a stable coin, that's definitely something interesting as well, and they do have a cap within the float or the outstanding coins in the available market, so they do have a point in which they burn excess tokens within that pool, so they can only have a certain amount within a float or the outstanding coins within a market, which is a very great mechanism for holding value, something that the US government cannot do. So let's continue on here. We're going to talk a little bit about QNT. Very solid structure. We see that key previous level of resistance turn into a new level of support. Looks awesome. It is contracting right now. I do think it's going to pop here, and on a larger time frame, it is holding a nice ascending wedge. And in my personal view, I think what we're going to be seeing is, let's do this. And I kind of view QNT as the next level of, let's say, Polkadot, where you had Chainlink, that was a hype in 2017, you had interoperability kind of at its basics, and then Polkadot introduced a new level of interoperability, and QNT is just basically able to provide interoperability for all DLTs or most DLTs, not just blockchains, because blockchain is a certain type of distributed ledger technology. For example, Tangle by IOTA is another type. So we do have different types. So, oh, excuse me, I'm getting a little bit of water here. And QNT allows those different DLTs to connect to one another and talk to each other, basically. So very interesting project. Check out the TCP IP impact on the world we know as the internet or the World Wide Web, which are two different things. So this is going to be the ascending wedge. What I'm expecting is we're currently seeing a squeeze right here, where we're seeing a lot of pressure from both the sellers to keep the price down and the buyers to hold this major level. I'm expecting the buyers to hold this major level and the sellers to bow out, and the price will rocket. So I am expecting something along the lines of this, grinding, and then pushing to the upside. So that's going to be my overall analysis on QNT. I am bullish on it, so I do have a little bit of a bias since I do own QNT in my portfolio. But overall, it does look very strong from both the technical aspect as well as the fundamentals in my personal view. All right. And we're going to be looking at another page here. This is going to be the last page. These are a little bit more traditional. Let's say Chainlink XRP seller. You know, that was the hype in 2017, really. 2016, 2017, that was a really big, the list of tokens there, especially Chainlink. That was a huge token. XDC, I don't know too much about this one, to be completely honest. I did see someone talking about it within our Discord, and there is a lot of different projects that we talk about within our Discord, which is fantastic. A lot of things to add to the list of alts to keep track of or to look into and understand its technology and how it could be utilized in the world that we live in today, which is a very, very interesting thing. And like I said, don't know too much about this one, but it is holding the previous ascending resistance as a new level of support, which is fantastic. If we are able to break this level at around 15 cents, it does look like it would invalidate the head and shoulders, which would then basically remove all confidence from the bears, replace it with bullish confidence because we're invalidating the potential reversal pattern, and we're going to continue the overall momentum to the upside. So lots of momentum coming in. And we also see the volume contract if we see a slight consolidation. So if we get our draw tool here, so if we get like a nice tight consolidation and a series of higher lows like that, and a ascending triangle within this zone here, and we see the volume continue to contract down, and we see the volume contract, we could see the price continue to rally up here to just continue the overall trend, as well as the initial burst of buy volume, a contraction, and then that second burst of buy volume, which is going to increase on a larger time frame the overall volume because we see higher volume coming into the market. So that's going to be my overall outlook just from a technical standpoint for XDC. All right. And then we're going to be looking a little bit at Chainlink, XRP, and Stellar just from this zone. Stellar does look like it is holding around that 34-cent zone, although this was a pretty hyped up token back in 2017. 2016, not really seeing as much buy volume and as much interest as some of the newer tokens. XRP has been doing really well. It is holding the major level of support at basically around $1. Major psychological zone as well as a key zone looking at the previous historic time frames. So it is holding really well, and on a smaller time frame, if you really want to get granular, it is squeezing. We can even end off looking at a small time frame of XRP going on the 4-hour chart. We do see that nice squeeze coming into play here. It is actually holding a series of higher lows, so this would be a nice symmetrical triangle formation, and then we can also derive our targets from the geometry. Let's get the arrow from the size of what we're breaking out of. So we go like this. We can get our fib, and the first main target is going to be 1.8, and the second target is going to be at around $2.10. So that's going to be my two main targets there, and then from that point we can see a nice little continuation pattern, and that's where we're going to derive our next targets from. So that's going to be my view on XRP. On a larger time frame, we could use this zone here to look at targets on a larger time frame, but in a smaller time frame, it does look very strong for XRP, and it's looking like it's setting up for that next leg higher. And this was a great, healthy contraction and consolidation before the next leg up, in my personal view. So that's going to be the video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Like I did say, if you have not joined in our Discord, definitely a lot of great interactions here, a lot of great conversations. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you thought this was useful, educational, entertaining, it's always appreciated if we are able to get any likes and subscribes. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, have a good one, traders.